Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's Revenge is Ice Cream. We have dogs barking outside, hopefully that's not getting picked up on the mic. But first up, we have Tank Driver tells me he doesn't want to see or hear from me, so he doesn't. By Beer Belly Begone. Begone. They do preface that English is not their first language, but it is mine, so I have no excuses. Let's lower that down a little bit. Back when I was in the army, my tank driver was someone who you'd really not want to spend time with unless you actually had to. Like, for instance, if you were in a tank crew with him and needed the tank to actually get from point A to point B. When it comes to crew breakdown in a tank, it goes like this. Tank gunner, my position. Coolest job in the tank, you get to shoot the big gun. You also have to do the least amount of maintenance work on the tank. Loader does most of the bitch work in the tank, has to carry and load multiple heavy tank shells, between 45 to 50 kilograms each. Not much maintenance work, but spends like 2 or 3 hours cleaning the 3 machine parts. Driver drives the tank, pretty simple, but a good driver will give you a smooth ride. A bad driver will make you feel every dip and bump in the terrain. Does the most maintenance work since they're in charge of the tank tracks and bogies, steel wheels in the tracks. Tank commander knows how to do all the positions, doesn't do any maintenance since they're usually in briefings on maintenance day. A good crew knows how to begin to think alike, doing things together without asking. It helps that you sleep together in the tank, so you all get to know each other pretty intimately. Nothing like peeing in a water bottle to remove any shyness between crew members. When it comes to maintenance, you can either have all the gunners from the platoon get together and work on all the platoon's tanks together, same with drivers and gunners. Or each crew can do their own tank. Usually we prefer the first option because it goes quicker. In this case, my crew was sent to support an infantry exercise on a different base in the middle of the desert on our own. We were simulating a whole tank company. But budget cuts meant only one tank was sent. Sunday, we got to base and deployed with our tank down into the exercise area. Monday to Wednesday night, we exercised. Thursday morning, the drill ended. And it was maintenance day. Crucial element here is that you don't get to go home for the weekend until your maintenance is complete. The flip side being that you could leave as soon as maintenance was completed and signed off on. The entire exercise, the driver was being a complete ass. I don't know if his girlfriend broke up with him or whatever, but he was even more annoying than usual. Aside from his attitude, his driving was so bad the TC almost broke a rib one time. And I nearly got a black eye when shooting in motion, and he unintentionally, I'm sure, aimed straight for a small ditch. By the time Thursday came around, the loader and I couldn't get rid of him for the weekend quickly enough, but alas, first maintenance beckoned. One of the tasks a gunner has to do is clean the cannon with an oiled cleaning rod. This is a 3-man job, loader in the tank and 2 people clean it from the outside. It can't be done by one person no matter how strong they are. I asked the driver to help me since the loader was inside the tank. The driver angrily told me he didn't want to hear from me or speak to me. No worries. I found somebody to give me a hand for a few minutes, and we got the job done. I completed the rest of my maintenance work pretty quickly, like I said, not much actually, with the help of the loader, and then I gave him a hand cleaning the machine guns. The 2 of us were done before lunchtime, just waiting for the TC to sign off on our work so we could start our weekend early. Driver, on the other hand, realized he didn't have any other drivers to help him maintain the tracks. Tension, tightening bolts, greasing ports, etc. And he told us to F off. He was still working on the tank when it got dark and was told to stop for safety reasons. He had to continue the job on Friday morning and missed out on a day of leave. I want to say that his attitude changed on Sunday when we got back to base, but you know it didn't. Thankfully, after about 2 more months of this nonsense, he was transferred out. I have no idea where he is today. I'm still good friends with the loader and TC. The driver can get bent. Okay, next up is accidentally destroying important manager documents because they forced me in to give my doctor's note, despite being sick. By GMS Rye Butt. Another person, not a native English speaker, so we know it's going to be word perfect. A little bit of background. Due to horrible teachers and my easily intimidated personality, I developed the fear of making mistakes. Since I was getting yelled at constantly for making some, now my body tried to avoid school and the stress that comes with it by developing the habit of vomiting to prove to my mother I was sick so I could stay home. Problem was, my body tries it a lot when I get stressed out. Now, I can suppress the habit to a certain degree if I focus on my breathing and close my eyes, but sooner or later, I have to leave the stress-causing situation or I vomit. Now, a little bit of German background, since I don't know if this concept exists in other countries. We call it Zeitarbeit, and Google translated it to temporary employment. But long story short, it just means you don't apply at the company you work for, you apply at the Zeitarbeit, company ZC, and who finds you a job. Yeah, that is a thing in other countries. You go to the ZC, give any important information they need to find you a job you don't totally hate, and if they find you something, they call you and you have an interview with the company you may work for. Then, if you agree to work there, you are technically an employee for 6 months. Yeah, temp work. After 6 months, they either let you go if the company believes it doesn't work out, or you get hired and now have a full job. In theory, that sounds awesome. In practicality, the companies save money if they let go of the temporary employee and circle to new ones, so your chance of staying is barely non-existing. Not to mention, in the 6 months, they don't need a reason to let you go other than to say, "No, it doesn't work out. No, it's not sure." Now, to the story. The first 2 jobs I got through ZC, I tried hard to impress them, doing overtime, working more outside of my job description, always being on time and never being sick. I ignored my mental problems and drowned them at home to endure everything. However, I wouldn't be here if I got hired. This story takes place in 2018, my 4th job, a factory where I have to pack and sort stuff. However, I was far less enthusiastic. No overtime, keeping to my job description, but still was always on time and stayed my 40 hours a week. However, the manager demanded overtime nearly daily. I wasn't going to do it. Not for minimum wage, and she didn't like it. But I was doing my job, so I believed she kept me in for the full 6 months before they let me go. But then I made an absolute fatal mistake by, daring to get sick. I got a cyst very close to my private area, and I could barely walk, stand, or even sit. Laying was uncomfortable, but at least not painful. I went to the doctor, got antibiotics and a doctor's note for 7 days, 5 for the antibiotics and 2 to see if it helped enough. I called in my job to state I was sick for a week, but my manager demanded I give it to her in person. Now I was annoyed, tired, and in pain that I have to go in since I was in my 2nd month working there, so I accepted and my parents drove me in. I waddled in like an X-legged penguin through the factory into her office. She didn't see me walk since she was writing something. I put the doctor's note on her desk, close to some of her documents. She looked up at me and started talking. A lot. Now, you can imagine the condescending Karen tone in her voice. She started lecturing me on how she dislikes that I don't do overtime, and how I'm lazy and now I went to a doctor to get a week of paid vacation. That I need to work on my working morale, and that my chances of getting hired are very slim and I need to put in 110%. If I want to have a chance, she needs to go back to school and learn how to do math properly. Now, my pain around my private area started worsening due to me standing, so I barely listened to her after that. But I noticed her voice got louder and louder, and she somehow talked herself into a rage, nearly yelling at this point, and I felt my stomach start churning. I started my strategies to keep my stomach calm, since I knew it would maybe be a few minutes of her complaining before I can leave. I tried to cut in to explain that I need to go home to rest. But she had none of it, and interrupted me, telling me how disrespectful it is to interrupt someone. The irony. Cue malicious compliance. I stopped calming down my stomach and let it do what it does best. And surprise, surprise, not even after a minute, everything comes out. Hitting her desk uncovers some of her documents and half my doctor's note. Her face was absolutely priceless, though I wished I could have enjoyed it more. Next to my pain and new taste. Her face was absolutely priceless, although I wished I could have enjoyed it more. Next to my pain and new taste. After her initial shock and silence, she finally sent me home to rest. I still think about it till today. After the week, I came back rather healthy, and I got pulled into her office, where she and another Boston manager waited for me. After a few words back and forth, they asked me why I didn't even try to turn around as I vomited, since I apparently damaged and destroyed some important documents. Even though I was not obliged to do it, I replied that the cyst I had, I couldn't even walk, stand, or turn around without a lot of pain, let alone going to the restroom or trash bin, and that I shouldn't even have been there in the first place, since a doctor's note can be handed in after I came back. The other manager and boss looked super angry at my manager. After more unimportant back and forth, I returned back to work. I still got let go after the 6 months, but I wasn't sorry about that job. I then decided to start focusing on my mental health and my addiction problem. The last bit of fact, the manager was gone quickly after me, and the factory was destroyed at the end of 2024. According to some of my old colleagues, they were constantly firing and hiring more and more people were quitting on their own. Okay, next up is got her fired before she could get promoted. Me and this person, we'll call her Karen, started working at this fast food place around the same time. I was 18 at the time, she was like 16. I started working there because my friend worked there and he became the GM before getting fired, for reasons he doesn't even know. But we did goof around a lot, so it's not a total shock. Anyways, that led to one of the new guys who had just turned 21 to become the GM, which wasn't too bad. Fast forward to around now. I'm 19, male, started dating this girl, Gina, who was 17, who also worked there, and the GM as well as some of the others thought the age gap was weird, and I think because of this they refused to promote me like they said they would, and because I was friends with the old GM. I wasn't too upset, I mean it's fast food, but I wanted more money, and on top of that, they decided to promote Karen to a person in charge, a manager that runs shifts, but not like the big boss or the AM or GM. I thought that made no sense because she's very immature, talks about getting high all the time like she's cool for doing it. Like, yeah, I smoke too, but I don't have a reason to talk about it, especially at work. Oh, some people just make it their personality, don't they? Vape in the back when the cameras couldn't see her. And most importantly, she would talk about her sex life at 17 or younger, which is wildly inappropriate. I'm pretty sure she was only promoted because she had recently turned 18 and they needed more people in charge. On top of that, her and the GM, now like 23, started getting really close. Not like romantically, but to the point where they would like go to restaurants together at 4 a.m. alone while he had a girlfriend. This was after he was talking about me and my girlfriend's age gap being weird, but whatever. So admittedly I was frustrated with that decision, but still didn't really care all too much. One of Gina's friends started working there, Heather, and eventually got promoted over me too, because she became such good friends with Karen. Me and Gina talked about how it made no sense because she was new and I was clearly more qualified. Gina then tells Heather that she's happy for her promotion, but it seems like she only got it because she's friends with Karen. Heather then tells Karen, who then starts talking crap about me and my girlfriend, but mainly my girlfriend, saying she needs to grow up. Which had us both mad because this was coming from the weed-smoking, sex-life-sharing pick-me girl who messes around on her shifts and plays cards and Among Us in the midst of the shift. But even then, I still didn't care too much, just thought I'd put it behind me and be the bigger person. Eventually, they needed another AM, because the higher-ups needed more people to take care of the store and stuff. So they tried to promote Karen, but she was so bad at her job, she failed. So instead of saying, promote someone else, the GM said they were going to retrain her, which was just stupid. I was really thinking of quitting because I did not want her as my boss, and the fact that the GM was so biased towards getting his little Discord kitten promoted was ticking me off because it's ridiculous. One day, me and my girlfriend jokingly said, we should take a video of her vaping and send it to the regional manager. This is the person above the GM who is corporate, so they are very about the rules. Vaping in the store at all is a fireable offense, but people have gotten in trouble for it before and only got a slap on the wrist. Jokes turned into reality, as the next time we did get video of her vaping in the back in 4K. The plan was that she would just get demoted or just not become AM, as corporate wouldn't like that. And they already didn't like her because of her being so bad at her job. I'm not normally a snitch, and I do not care about vaping in the store at all, but I disliked her so much and wanted her demoted so bad that I sent the video to the regional manager with a whole paragraph of BS saying it's unfair and all that. The regional manager responded saying she'd handle it and hearted the message, which I thought was funny, showing she wanted something to get her out. A couple of days later, she was fired and I had unnecessary amounts of euphoria. She suspected we had something to do with it, but she doesn't know for sure. Now she works at Walmart, and she looks miserable, as she's not just doing nothing for $20 an hour anymore. And I love it. Next up, this story is anonymous, so I can't tell you who wrote it or the title, but I can tell you the story. I recently started working in a very large packaging facility. Beginning there, I was excited for the opportunities I would have working for such a major company. Early on, I noticed a lot of placating and patronizing things that sent a message of, you should be grateful to work here. It was overly obnoxious implementation too. Keeping my rosy-colored glasses on, I am working as hard as I can, despite everyday equipment not working correctly, conveyor belts not running, etc. Now, there are a lot of rules for our safety and the company's. One of the major rules is that if you are not officially trained for it, to not do it, even if a manager tells you to. Recently, they have become draconian with their rules, at least for the lower-rung workers. Now, there is a manager that should not have had any leadership position whatsoever. He has zero interpersonal communication skills. Anytime he has to talk to you, he is demeaning, condescending, and his voice and body language let you know how inconvenienced he is, and he can't believe he has to do it. Yesterday I had enough. Cue malicious compliance. I'm packing items into boxes and putting them on the conveyor belt. I run out of a few size of boxes, so per protocol, I turn on the help light above my station and wait because I need those boxes. The manager comes by. What's up? I need these boxes. Well, do you know where they are? Or you can go get them from another station. I was told not to do that. What do you mean? You can't go get boxes? Okay, I'm asking you to go get boxes. I'm not supposed to leave my station. And that is this person's job that I am not trained for. Fine. The look on his face was blank but turning slightly red, and I thought I could see steaming rage come out of his ears. In a few minutes I get my boxes delivered by them and continue work. Shortly after, I see him showing around the person responsible for stocking our boxes. Not much time passes and the conveyor belt stops running, and it fills up so we can't place packages on them. Before today, I would stack them around my station and keep working, and go find a manager and find a solution. Our work area is not supposed to be cluttered and I'm not supposed to leave my station, so I turn the light on and stop working. Hey, what's going on? I've no place to set my packages. What do you mean, put them right here? They pointed the floor next to my station. I was told not to put anything on the floor, it's a tripping hazard. I can't believe. Who told you that? When I worked at X location, I had 3 trainers on separate occasions, and situations tell me this. He stares at me for a solid 3 seconds, and looks around. "That station over there, walk over and stack the packet there. I'll put them on the conveyor belt when I get back." The station is about 50 feet, and I am on the end nearest it, so I start jamming out walking packages over. I hear him telling the rest of the station to do the same. In the 15 minutes it takes for the belt to run again, there is at least 75 packages piled up in the other station, all various sizes and weights. Manager walks by and stops dramatically, staring at the dragon's hoard before him with mouth open, incredulous. The first package he picks up must have been heavy, because he stumbles a little picking it up. The only place to put them on is the line right next to me. He proceeds to slam each and every one down to the belt, huffing and puffing. I don't even acknowledge his existence, but inside I'm laughing my butt off. Okay, and lastly for this video, may not be that pretty, but a good story nonetheless, by Ozark Golfer. My now ex-wife and I lived in Southern California back in 1991, and we owned and operated a small logistics company. It was small, as I had just sold my interest in a large specialty logistics company, and at the time I was restricted by a non-compete. We were looking for new ways to generate business, and I remembered an old acquaintance, Clive, who was in sales for the transportation of electronics, a field that I was not restricted in. Long story short, we hire on Clive. The package we offer Clive is a salary plus company car that he could use outside of work. But in return, he would insure the car. We would pay lunch expenses, and he could fill the tank on a Friday, use it on the weekend, and we would pay for another refill on Monday. Clive brings on 3 customers in his first week. Almost but not quite covers his salary, but not enough to pay for the other expenses, car, fuel, medical, etc. However, 3 in the first week was terrific. A month goes by and nothing new, and another month and another, and it is patently obvious he's brought on his old buddies, but he's not got anything new to offer, or wasn't even trying to get new business. He's either playing golf or hanging out at the office trying to make time with one of the girls working in accounting. I had been gradually getting after him about production. How could he help secure leads or give additional service to the clients he had already brought on? Nothing happening. Then 2 of the 3 clients started to ghost us. We knew they had freight, we were not seeing it. I was trying to run a business, not a charity, so eventually we had a meeting, and Clive said he had a couple of leads that were very close to fruition. I'd heard that before, so we agreed a week we would see this business coming our way. I'd even been given both of these new proposed customer names, and we needed to run a D&B check to make sure they were creditworthy. That following week, Clive was not coming into the office, which was fair enough, as he was supposed to be visiting clients. But he was also not returning phone calls or pages. Also found out he had not insured the car, so he was driving around in a vehicle with my name on the title uninsured. About 10 days after our last meeting, we managed to track him down on his home phone. I told him I would give him 2 weeks' pay, but he needed to return the car as it was uninsured, and we were done. He said he would be in the office the next morning to wrap it all up. Next day, no sign, no response to calls or his pager. Or the next day or the day after that. I called the police to report a stolen car, and I was told that as I had given Clive permission to drive the car, he had 30 days to bring it back. Seemed like an eternity of liability to me. So, Super Bowl was coming weekend, and I heard he had invited mutual friends to a party at his condo. I'd already driven by to see if the car was parked outside, and no sign. The condos were built over 3 garages that backed up to the rear alley, and 2 or 3 had a padlock. So, Super Bowl night, I got a ride to Clive's residence, looked for the car and no sign. I had a spare set of keys. It had to be parked in one of the garages, as I could hear his and his partner's voice upstairs. Their unit overlooked the rear alley. Opened the unlocked unit and no luck. Armed with bolt cutters, I made short work of padlock number 1. Sounded like rifle shot. Not my car in there. Clive must have heard it, as I heard him and his partner ask each other, "What was that?" I made short work of padlock number 2, and as the padlock came off the door, Clive ran around the corner and ran back inside. He knows who would win in a tussle. My car was there, so got in it, started it up, and pulled it out of the garage. He even closed the garage door, and drove it to a friend's garage, followed by my ride. I got home an hour later to find 2 police officers on my doorstep talking to my wife. Clive had reported I burgled his garage. My story was I went by to pick up my car, showed the title in my name, and it was parked on the street. I needed to recover it as it was uninsured. They gave me a knowing smile. The gloves I used during this escapade were in my back pocket, but there was no thought to take this any further. One of the officers had been to our house the previous week when the neighbors' dogs were being left out at 11 p.m. and would constantly bark to get let back in. They would be out there every night for the best part of an hour. When I knocked on their front door, with another neighbor outside to witness the next day to discuss without any malice, said neighbor came at me with a baseball bat. He followed me to the side of the road, and I took the bat off him and called the police to get a report. Free baseball bat. Next day, Clive came by with the police escorting him to hand over the other set of keys, and I handed him a box of his belongings. And that brings us to the end of this week's Revenge is Ice Cream, 223 I believe we're on. Big thanks to everyone who allowed me to use their stories in this video, and if you'd like to get early access to the videos and support the channel at the same time, do that by signing up for my Patreon page, which is linked in the description. You'll also find a link to my merchandise store on Teespring. Okay, before we go, let's move on to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is... how do I phrase this? What is a time... think of a time when you've been making something and you've suddenly discovered, damn, I don't have the ingredient for that, so you had to substitute something else. For example, I wanted to make scones the other night, as I do often on the weekend. At least I have been until I looked up how much calories is in the average scone, at least the kind I make, and it's about 350 at least. They get higher. Some have less, but I don't think the ones with less would be very good. So I probably won't be doing that too much more because I'm calorie counting now. I'm not calorie restricting yet, but I'm calorie counting. And I'll do that for a while, then I'll start going into a deficit just to help get the pounds off. But I was baking last weekend, and I usually do cinnamon and a little bit of ginger in my scones, then I'll put either fruit or chocolate. It's a very, very nice way to make a scone. And was out of cinnamon, out of ginger, and didn't really want to dip into next week's grocery budget. I like to budget for the month just to make sure I have enough to live comfortably for the month. And I didn't really want to dip into next week's grocery budget just for unneeded ingredients for baking. So I thought, well, what do I have? Then I was, okay, I've got some very nice white chocolate, Options white chocolate, hot chocolate powder. So I put a couple of tablespoons of that in with it, and it turned out very, very nice indeed. I had that, and I had sultanas in there as well. So let me know what you think. Share some of your ideas in a comment below. And before we go, we'll take a look at the answer of the day from a previous video. And this one comes from Toria Mansfield. I think the question was cold things on a hot day. And their answer is gazpacho. I know it's technically a cold soup, but I love to drink it anyway. Thank you very much for your answer, Toria Mansfield. And with that, I'm going to head off from now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.